Baton Rouge, working towards the weekend. And this weekend, renewal of a big-time rivalry in the Southeastern Conference, LSU and Florida, Saturday night in Death Valley, just after 6:30 for kickoff. Graham Hall covers the Florida Gators for Swamp 24/7. Good enough to give us a little bit of time here on this Wednesday. Graham, we appreciate that time. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. It's an exciting time. Definitely an interesting one in Gainesville, though.
Yeah, it's an interesting one in Gainesville. It's interesting in Baton Rouge, and it's going to be an interesting one Saturday night for sure. Let's talk about those interesting times in Gainesville. Obviously, the Billy Napier era has never really taken off, but last year they did recover and play really well when all hope seemed to be lost. Is there a sense there that they could do that again after a brutal loss last weekend?
I think that's certainly the hope for a lot of people. And, you noted that win streak at the end of the year, the win over Long Island, 5 consecutive wins, and a lot of promising pieces for Florida returning on both sides of the ball, from Caleb Banks, Jake Slaughter, Austin Barber, a lot of experience, and of course DJ Lagway. There was a lot of optimism for him after his freshman season, but then it was certainly derailed by his ongoing health concerns, the shoulder that kept him out of spring, and then the calf strain that kept him out for the majority of fall camp. He looks like someone who's kind of, I've been saying, freshman year 2.0. He doesn't really look like he got the strides or was able to make the strides that they were looking for him to make throughout the previous 9 months. So a lot of people are certainly kind of back to where they were at this time last year when Florida started 1-2, and there was all this speculation surrounding Billy Napier and whether he would make it through the end of the year. And then obviously Florida makes some improvements and is more competitive down the stretch. Now they're forced to do that a lot sooner than they were last year, or else this thing could certainly go off the rails when you look at Florida's schedule, not just LSU this weekend, but then Miami, Texas, going to Texas A&M. It certainly is a daunting slate, and if the Gators can't be more competitive and turn it around here, we may see a coaching change before the year is up. And so it is certainly a make-or-break time right now in Gainesville, and I think there's a lot of frustration surrounding it because of how familiar it feels. Self-inflicted mistakes, special teams miscues and penalties. They had 3 missed field goals in the first game, and then they had a bad snap on a punt go out of the end zone for a safety, 2 points and a 2-point loss to USF. So it seems like Florida can't get out of their own way, and I think that's why a lot of people are frustrated. They have all the talent and have landed top 10 classes, but it's them beating themselves right now.
Let's talk further about DJ Lagway. I'm not sure what kind of access y'all get to fall camp and practices and whatnot, but what's your sense of how much he was able to practice in August, and what's your sense of his health right now?
Well, I think a lot of the concerns about his shoulder, his downfield throwing ability, I think it's too soon to hit the panic button with those, and he certainly looks mobile. He's been able to take off, use his legs, a guy who certainly looks like he maybe could get into a little bit better shape. He's added weight to his frame, and there aren't many quarterbacks at the next level that can play at over 245 pounds. Those, I think, would be the health concerns that people are more worried about, his long-term availability and making sure that he gets into better and better shape. I do think, though, that for him, you're seeing someone who still struggles to read zone defenses, zeroes in on his primary read, is comfortable checking down, needs to, I think, get more confident in reading the defense and audibling out of a play call there. This is someone who, like I said, didn't do anything in spring when it comes to throwing the ball, and then had the calf strain at the end of the off-season workout program. So he didn't start doing 11 on 11 until I think about 12 days before the season opener. So really that last week of fall camp and then the build-up to the game against Long Island. So he's less than a month into being a full practice participant, and you're still seeing him make some strides. He adjusted his mechanics to not aggravate that shoulder, and I think you're seeing some errant throws due to that, him not being really comfortable with the throwing motion yet, and still trying to get into a groove of things after being away from the field for probably the longest time since he was, 13 years old. This is a guy who is used to being out there every single day, and he was sidelined. So still a quarterback who hasn't done a ton. All we've heard is that he keeps getting exponentially better, taking steps in the right direction, but you still haven't seen that downfield explosive throwing ability, which was kind of a staple of his last year, where he had over 12 plays of 40-plus yards through the air last year as a freshman in just 7 games. So that's what a lot of Florida fans are waiting on, and they need him to cut down on the mistakes. He had an interception against USF last week. He averaged around 1 pick every 21 throws last year as a freshman as well. And you can't make those if you aren't making explosive plays. If you're turning the ball over and missing your targets and failing to capitalize, you're not going to be able to have a ton of success in this league.
One of the things that helps a quarterback, young or old, is a great ground game, and we know that Jaden Ball is incredibly talented. I saw this reel from Todd McShay. I don't even know if it's right or not, but I saw it earlier this morning. Said that he got 6 touches on the first drive and then 12 the rest of the game against South Florida, and that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. What do you think they're going to try to get done with Jaden Ball in this game, and do they need to involve him more?
I agree they need to involve him more. I mean, that's kind of a head-scratcher. I had tweeted out that after that first drive against USF, I think he had 5 carries for 51 yards in the opening minutes of the game, and then you really see Florida kind of go away from him for a good bit. You know, they're going to rotate there consistently. They really like what they have in redshirt senior Jacoby Jackson, and Katie Daniels and Duke Clark are probably your 3rd and 4th backs right now. But as much as they want to take a by-committee approach and keep guys fresh for the next level and for the rest of the season, Jaden Ball is clearly your best running back, and if the Gators aren't getting it done through the air, you need to ride Ball as much as you possibly can. He should be a guy who gets double-digit carries in every single game, if not 20 or more, because he's someone who is, they talked about in the offseason, your strongest pound-for-pound player. He's shattered weight room records. He's elusive. He's got good vision, hard to bring down in the open field. And for Florida, they're probably going to need to look to establish the run at a higher rate starting this weekend, just given what we talked about with Lagway, some of the defensive issues so far. They just gave up nearly 400 yards to USF. They're going to need to establish the run, and Jaden Ball should be their primary weapon. I'm looking for him to be used early and for Florida not to go away from him down the stretch in this game unless it gets entirely out of hand, and then Florida has to really just rely on the passing game to make up some ground. Early on in the contest, they should use Ball heavily.
You mentioned Caleb Banks a little bit earlier. He's not played yet this year, but he was part of a Florida defensive line that absolutely wrecked LSU's really good offensive line from a pass rush perspective last year in Gainesville. What can you tell us about Banks' injury, health, and potential availability for this week?
Yeah, he's been dealing with ankle injuries really dating back to last season. He had off-season surgery on his ankle and then suffered some unknown injury to his ankle, maybe the foot, closer to the foot area from what I've heard, in fall camp. Didn't play the first 2 weeks. I had someone tell me that he could have played last week, but they wanted to be extra cautious with him. I do think that it's very likely that he is available this week, but just given how those things take to heal up fully, the ankle flexion that you need as an interior defensive lineman, I could see why they maybe take a little bit even more of a cautious approach and aren't going to fully clear him yet when the availability report comes out in about 5 hours from now. This is someone, though, that due to the depth on the interior of the defensive line, you really need Banks back because Florida has Jamari Lyons also coming back from a compound fracture to his ankle that he suffered last year, missed the entire 2024 season. Mekhi Barrow is a promising sophomore. Brendan Bett, we'll see what his status is after he was ejected for that spitting penalty in the fourth quarter against USF. They need a guy like Banks back. So if they do get him back, that would be huge for him because go back to that LSU game last year. He was just an absolute menace, especially in the third and fourth quarter. I think he had 2.5 sacks against that LSU offensive line that had come into the game last year in the second week of November, only allowing, I think, 6 sacks on the season, and then the Gators get 7 of them. So Florida's going to need to generate pressure, and Banks is a huge component in their ability to do that on Saturday.
What's the biggest key for Florida in this game on Saturday night, either side of the ball?
I mean, they can't shoot themselves in the foot. I think that is probably what people are most concerned about with Florida. They have the talent. They have a good quarterback. They're good at the skill positions. They're talented at wide receiver, running back, tight end. They have the most experienced offensive line in the SEC. They have depth at edge, promising linebackers, and experience in the third level of the defense. But it doesn't matter if you have all that and you're going out there and committing double-digit penalties and extending drives and making mistakes on special teams, giving up safeties, struggling to substitute correctly. You go back to that USF game, the only touchdown that USF had in the game was on, you look at that play, Florida's running off the field. They look like they're struggling to get the play call in. There's miscommunication in the secondary, and then Singleton ends up getting a 66-yard touchdown. I mean, those things cannot happen, and that's going to be even tougher in a hostile environment where everyone's against you and you're facing the most productive quarterback in the SEC a year ago. If Florida avoids turnovers, penalties, executes, establishes the run, gets the play call in consistently, I think they're going to have a chance in this game. But if they make all those mistakes I just mentioned, they're going to be out of this game pretty quickly in my mind, and the frustrations in Gainesville are only going to further amplify, even though it already feels like it's at a fever pitch right now with everyone calling for Billy Napier to be parted ways with here in Gainesville and people questioning whether DJ Lagway really is this generational talent that so many proclaimed him to be after 6 games last year.
I think we all know what a loss would mean. You're alluding to it right there. But what would a win mean for Florida? Do you think that it would right the ship?
It'd be like Men in Black, where he erases the memory. People would forget about the USF loss. I mean, if you go into Death Valley and win at Tiger Stadium and you get that first SEC win, you prove to 2-1, people are not just going to feel better about Billy Napier and everything we just mentioned. They're going to feel better about Florida's chances for success moving forward. They have another road game after this where they have to go down to a Miami team who's taking on USF this weekend. So we'll know, I think, a little bit more about both of those teams. And then they have a bye week. And you go back to what happened with Florida last year, they really credited that bye week for those improvements. So if they can win either one of these upcoming 2 games, LSU or Miami, or potentially both, and then you go into a bye week, get a little bit healthier, take on a Texas team that I don't think looks as good as a lot of people thought that they would, got to travel to College Station, Florida fans are going to feel a lot better about that game. The narrative is going to be reset about Florida after so many people hit the panic button and said, oh, they're not going to even be potentially a bowl eligible team by season's end. If this continues, you're going to get back to the restoration of some hope here in Gainesville that Florida can actually contend for a spot in the college football playoff as long as they take care of business the rest of the down the stretch, but they have to absolutely look competitive in this game. I think that even if they don't win this game, if you are in it in the fourth quarter and you get beat by a couple plays or LSU just comes out and beats you, people aren't going to be as angry as they were as losing to an unranked USF team where Florida made consistent mistakes. You have to be competitive and make people believe that you're cleaning some things up and making progress, not continuing to get into your own way.
He's Graham Hall from Swamp 24/7, covering the Gators for the 24/7 network. Appreciate a little bit of time, and enjoy the rest of your week and some football on Saturday.
My pleasure. Can't wait for Saturday. Y'all take care down there.
Sure will. That is Graham Hall from Swamp 24/7. That availability report will be interesting tonight. Again, I am not married to them when it comes to college football. I think the NFL has really cracked down with what they reveal, and you can kind of take those to the bank to an extent. College, I'm not sure is to that point. So whatever LSU says about Braylon Moore, whatever they say about Trey'Dez Green, we'll see what ends up happening. Whatever Florida does say about Caleb Banks, we'll see. Those are obviously very impactful pieces to this puzzle, depending on whether or not they're available or not. Tomorrow, I'm going to spend a lot of time on Florida's defensive front. It includes Caleb Banks, a defensive tackle. It includes Tyreek Sapp at edge. Those 2 guys were part of a Florida defense that just annihilated LSU last year. That can't happen this time. And so one way or another, whether Banks plays or not, you got to do a better job of keeping Garrett Nussmeier upright and trying to run the football than you did last year in Gainesville. And certainly, if you're Florida, when you run Roberts in that defense, you're thinking if we can recreate what we did last year against an offensive line that's not as good on paper, we got a real chance to go into Tiger Stadium and win. It's a big, big, big piece to what we're looking at here in this game on Saturday night. Hey, thanks for watching Hunt on LSU. Before you get out of here, do us a couple of favors. Hit that like button, leave your comments below, and subscribe to the channel for all your Fighting Tiger football talk. See you next time.